Hello and welcome to Kicking Tires. My name is Jimmy,
And I'm Justin.
and today is July 22nd. A little bit delayed today, or this week, I should really say, but we delayed it for a good reason because all the Civic Type R news came out, and we really want to talk about that. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's talk about another R. This is a Ford Raptor R, and it's exactly what we thought, really, right? It's basically the Raptor with the GT500 engine.
Yeah,
Nothing wrong with that.
5.2 liter supercharged V8, 700 horsepower, 640 pounds-feet of torque. So meant to compete against the TRX. It's not quite as powerful as the TRX, I think, at least in terms of torque. But this is a more modern engine. So I assume it's going to get better fuel economy. It's got the 10 speed. It's lighter with the aluminum body. Uh, I don't think people really care about fuel economy in this, but the TRX is it's hard not to care about fuel economy because you just spend so much time at the gas pumps.
Well, this thing, because of, I mean, aluminum block, aluminum body panels, you're looking at about 500-pound weight savings compared to the TRX.
Yeah, and it's got a badass hood scoop. Like overall, it's because Ram doesn't really have kind of that in between model. I know they have the Rebel, but they don't have anything like as cool as a normal Raptor. So this is not a huge departure from a normal Raptor, whereas the TRX is a huge departure from the
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 Rebel.
Rebels.
Mhm.
This is a little bit more aggressive with the body and the graphics, but not too crazy. The Raptor is already fairly crazy. 37-inch KO2s,
Mhm.
kind of cool.
So just to step back a little bit, the TRX is 702 horsepower, 650 pound-feet of torque. So
Oh,
you're only down 2 horsepower and 10 pound-feet. So like
mhm.
really negligible differences between the numbers wise.
Yeah.
Um,
And
but
I'm sure we're going to see a ton of drag race comparisons
oh,
on and
100%.
off road to see which is going to be, actually king because those are peak power numbers. At the same time, one's got a much bigger displacement, but one's lighter and one's more modern and better engineered, probably with a better transmission. So
Yeah.
interesting to see this.
Curious to see kind of, what's going to happen. 8 speed versus 10 speed. Um, so
Yeah.
to make the Raptor R, what they really done is they dropped the GT500 engine, right? They change out the front springs because it is a heavier engine compared to the regular Raptor, about 100 pounds more. There's stronger axles, stronger drive shafts, stuff that you need for that extra power. But really, it's just a GT500 engine with a smaller pulley to increase that lower mid-range torque because the GT500 has like
Mhm.
760 horsepower, I think it was, but less torque. Like this is it's really designed for the
Yeah.
capability for the Raptor.
And they've re-engineered this engine. Like, I read they use a different oil pan because you're gonna have, really steep inclines. It's similar to, high G situations that you would have in a GT500, but this is like, you're gonna be on your side, or you're gonna be at a very steep downhill or ascent. And so a different you have to kind of re-engineer this thing. You don't really think about that. I don't know how much difference there is with a Challenger with the Hellcat motor versus the TRX. But this is kind of cool that Ford talks about. Hey, we've got shared parts with the GT500, which is kind of cool because that engine is kind of special, and it's good to see it in more than just the Mustang. Um, you know, this is this is like a pretty sweet Halo car for Ford.
Mhm.
So it's good to see that engine in it. I don't think they've bastardized it as much as the Hellcat engine because I don't know, with the Jeep, and they've put that Hellcat engine in everything now. It
Yeah.
feels like it just feels like because they have nothing better to do, and I don't know how much Well, the TRX is pretty thoroughly engineered, but a lot of times they don't really. It feels a bit lazy on FCA Stellantis' part.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. What's kind of cool is like the Raptor R, like on paper, almost everything about it is like one-upping the TRX. Kind of like how the TRX when it launched, it was one-upping the Raptor, the regular
Yeah,
Raptor, the Raptor R. Now it's one-upping the TRX. Like it
right.
has higher tow rating, 8,700 pounds versus 8,100, has higher payload, so 1,400 pounds. Like everything that it's doing, it's just one-upping it. It's
Mm.
almost like they can engineer something a lot better, but they're like, we only just need to beat it just a little bit so that way we leave something on the table.
Yeah, well,
You know what I
and the
mean?
TRX comes with 35s, I believe.
Yeah.
I think you can probably put 37s on, but just out of the box, a 37-inch tire is going to give you so much of an advantage over a 35.
109,000 US dollars. It is
Yeah,
fully equipped at that point, though. There's no packages or anything like that that
right.
they
The
said that you
TRX
can
does
put
have
on.
options.
You know,
Yeah,
yeah, it's pricey, but I mean, if you're looking for one crazy off-roader,
yeah. That's a cool $40,000 more than a base Raptor in the US. So it's a significant amount. I think the Raptor I don't know. For me, I think I would probably still just take the regular Raptor and modify it a little bit. I don't care so much about the exhaust noise um, in this kind of application because the what makes the Raptor special is the suspension, the look, and you're getting most of that in the regular Raptor. And you can put 37s on a regular Raptor too.
yeah, it's just an optional package. I mean,
Mhm.
the only visual difference on the Raptor R is how the R on the Raptor is in red, and you get a
Yeah,
bulging hood.
I think the
Um,
grill looks wider. I want to say. Uh, I don't know. It looks like 90% the same.
yeah,
So for let's say $70,000 US versus 110,000, that's a pretty big jump. That's a 50% jump to go up to the Raptor R, which, bragging rights aside, as far as the way I'm actually going to use a truck like this, I don't know if the R is actually that much better.
I,
And
yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
as far as weight goes, being lighter is always an advantage, off road and on road.
going off road, I'm sure the EcoBoost is going to be better on fuel as well, which
Yeah,
in
the
these days is
EcoBoost.
going to be a concern.
You look at a Raptor and you think this thing's going to be ridiculous, and honestly, it does better than your average foreigner, right? Like, it looks so obnoxious. Like the Raptor is almost as obnoxious as the TRX, but realistically, it gets like 15 miles per gallon. It's a very reasonable uh, EPA rating for an SUV or big truck or something like that. So the regular Raptor with the EcoBoost, I really like. I think it's a great car. Yeah,
Let's
the
see.
R is gonna be like low teens mile per gallon wise.
Oh,
The GT 500.
all the Raptor R is the TBD stuff, but 18 miles per
Yes.
gallon with the regular Raptor.
Yeah.
Sorry, sorry.
Yeah, because the GT 500 gets 14. No, it gets 12 city. So this is gonna probably do 12 or not, if not worse.
Oh, it's
Um,
going to do worse for sure, considering
it,
how much
it you know
heavier
what?
it
It's
is.
hard to say because I had a Camaro, I had a Corvette, and I've driven the Silverado with the 6 point
Two.
whatever, and the Silverado outperforms both of those in terms of miles per gallon, and it's significantly heavier. It's the tuning and the gearing. It's all really important. Like you could baby that Corvette, and it does cylinder deactivation on the highway. It can get sick fuel economy, but in the city, uh, you're lucky to do, I would say, under 17 liters per 100K, which any half ton, from GM or Ford can do pretty much all
Pretty
day long.
standard.
Yeah, and while weighing 1,500, 2,000 pounds more than a Corvette. So it's hard to say. But I'm pretty sure uh, the regular. What my point is, the regular Raptor is a reasonable fuel economy. It's one that I can stomach. The Raptor R is probably beyond my means as far as like a reasonable daily.
Yeah, it's definitely not a truck that you want to daily. I don't think
Mhm.
I don't think it's one of those. But it it certainly is cool. And I think in 5-10 years we're not going to see stuff like this anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyways, what we will see in 5-10 years is something like this, a Toyota Crown. We talked a little bit about this last week, but we got the official photos this week and they
Very
look weird.
controversial, but it is what we thought.
It is what we thought, but it's weird. It's really weird. So it is a high riding sedan. So here's the thing: the greenhouse is actually quite small. So the glass on it, height of the glass is actually shorter, but like the body, if you look at how thick that body is from the belt line all the way to the bottom, it's thick. It's super
Yeah,
thick.
the window looks short in comparison.
Yeah.
This is like first gen Venza as far as like
The side door, how it goes all the way down.
yeah, and like how far the side skirt is from the ground. Like it's a very low SUV, but it's still almost SUV height.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's really weird. So there's a modification that I saw for this on Motor Trend. I'll bring it up now. Plop. It's Gazoo Racing and Modelista. So if you look at this, because they put the
that looks sick. The ground effects.
it does look
It
good.
visually lowers the car a nice amount.
But here's the problem with it. Look at this photo. Because of the ground effects, how it lowers the car, now you got like 14 feet of side body panel and then like 2 feet of glass.
I think that looks kind of gangster. It looks kind of like an armored vehicle in that sense. If maybe to the different eyes, it might look like a handy capable vehicle, like one
Like,
that's modified for wheelchairs.
yeah, it just looks so weird.
But
Like, it
I
looks
don't know.
cool. Don't get me wrong, it looks cool with the body kit on it. I think it looks really cool.
Big
But
news is it's coming to North America. And they say returns to North America. I don't remember them selling a Crown here.
we had a Crown in North America, actually.
Huh.
I did search that up.
Which generation Crown was even sold here?
I
Like
don't
what
remember.
year approximately? Because I'm thinking Crown as in like the taxis we had in Hong Kong.
Yeah,
Um,
no, it's not that one. It's
and were they even
27
called Crowns?
years.
27. So that's the 90s. We didn't have a Crown in the 90s. We maybe had the Cressida.
US? US, maybe? I remember I looked it up whenever I said that. I was like, oh, what? It's a return of the crown. Oh no, 50
Yeah.
year hiatus. Sorry, not 20 something
50
years.
years. So in the six, well, I've definitely never seen one of those Crowns
Yeah.
from the early 70s. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe we had those, but yeah.
It's not something that we remember. We weren't alive.
The first 2 years, only the first 2 years were imported into the US. So 71, 72.
There you go.
So barely exists, and no one bought Japanese imports back then,
Yeah,
anyways.
definitely not.
And I doubt that even includes Canada. So it is that weird hybrid SUV sedan thing. Got body cladding on the side. 2.4 turbo. That's what similar to what's in the NX and
Yeah. Yeah. Well, not yes and no. So it's the 2.4 turbo, which is in the NX, but this is the hybrid 2.4 turbo, which isn't available in the NX. You got a
oh
2.4 turbo in
hybrid
the
mix.
RX.
I
So
see.
two engine options. Base is a 2.5 liter hybrid, which is used in basically everything. That's going to be about 236 horsepower. The 2.4 turbo, that's only on the platinum trim, that makes 340 horsepower.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this is it's still the same like Toyota hybrid tech, where it's like engine at the front, you got a motor integrated in there, or multiple motors depending on the which one you get, and then you got a motor in the rear. The 2.4 turbo, the motor in the rear, it's always running, no
Hmm.
matter what. So you always have power to the rear. It sends up to 70% of power to the front, like that's kind of like normal, and up to 80% to the rear.
Nice.
So it,
Standard 19-inch wheels, and then
yeah,
the platinum gets a 21-inch wheel.
it,
So these are SUV sized tires.
they are SUV size tires. I'm sure they're SUV like weighted tires as well, because like this thing is going to be heavy.
There's
It,
nothing that will really differentiate this weight wise from an NX or RX like
oh,
type of SUV.
yeah.
I think it's interesting. It's a really interesting concept. I don't know why Toyota is doing this because they have such success with their hybrid SUVs that do they really need to
Well,
play with
so
you know
this is to replace the Avalon, right? That's the thing. The
yeah.
the main thing is this is to replace the Avalon. But
And
like,
it looks very premium. Like the overall approach is very upmarket, and it's interesting. You seeing Toyota's trend first with the Venza, and now this is to elevate their models, kind of like how we always talk about Mazda being more premium than
your
the
typical,
mainstream commuter brands.
yeah.
It feels like Toyota's kind of doing that with these models, like the Venza and the Crown. Um, And to me, it kind of feels like okay, someone who like me had a Prius in their 20s, as their commuter car. Now I want to step up something a little bit more executive feeling, and this is kind of it. Now the trunk is not a real hatchback; it's a very
Yeah.
stubby sedan style trunk, which is kind of interesting.
Well, what's weird is like the cutout
Hmm.
where it looks like it should cut out, especially on that platinum model because it's blacked out. It looks like it's the full fascia that pops open, but it's not. It's only the center.
Only the middle. It's more of like an SUV. And in terms of the length, it's more like a hatchback. Typically with a sedan, we get a much longer rear overhang, but this trunk looks to me like it might be smaller than a Camry. It's hard to say. It looks like it goes fairly deep to that
Yeah,
seat pillar.
considering like the luggage that they have showing here, it looks kind of normal-ish.
Yeah,
But it has those stupid arms that come down
yeah,
that
not
crush your
space
cargo.
savers. Yeah, so interesting choices here and there.
I
I'm really curious who the target demographic is, and I think it is those weird old folks that.
I
But
think it's for an older generation. It absolutely is. It's to replace the Avalon. Who
a
was
car
young
that
that
is
bought
like
the Avalon?
completely irrelevant too.
Yeah,
Like if they stop making the Avalon, then does those people would just buy something else? They'll buy an
they'll just buy
SUV.
an ES.
Yeah, they'll buy a Lexus. They'll buy
They'll
a
pay
Camry.
they'll pay a
They'll
little like
buy a
you know
Venza.
if it's an Avalon, it's like you pay a little bit more, you get the Lexus ES. You get a much better experience. Or if you just want a cheap boat, you get a Camry.
Yeah, the funniest thing about Avalons is the what really differentiates an Avalon and a Camry is the back seat, and the back seat never gets used in an Avalon
Yeah.
because it's it's two, if not one, if the partner has passed away. So
Oh no.
realistically, it is. It's someone like a widow driving that car. The backseat will never be used. Like there's, yeah.
Oh geez. You went there, eh?
I went there because I think like okay, the grandparents that realistically want to take their kids out and stuff, they get minivans or like SUVs.
Right.
But the Avalon is such a clumsy vehicle that I don't get the appeal, and the sales figures don't really support its existence. I feel like,
Yeah. I
yeah.
I honestly don't know why this is coming, because if we take a look at the other crowns that's available, so the crown that we're getting is the one here on the far left hand side if you're watching this on YouTube, but it's just like the SUV sedan. But they also have Crown Sport Style, which is like a
Hot
smaller
hatch
SUV.
kind of looks like a Taycan Cross Turismo thing.
But it's a lot smaller.
Smaller, yeah.
But they have a regular sedan and then an estate. So they have a wagon, a sedan, a small SUV, and we get the ginormous sedan.
4 flavors of Crown, and they think we want the sedan,
No,
but
not the regular sedan, because the regular sedan actually looks really cool. We're getting the ugly lifted sedan. Okay,
because Americans like SUVs, but we already have enough SUVs in our lineup.
yeah, but the other ones look so much better. Like this
Yeah,
hot hatch, small SUV looking one, that looks sweet.
yeah.
I mean, these are concepts at the moment because the windows are all blacked out. You don't see a thing. They could drastically change, but the Crown sedan just looks like, if a
That
more
looks like a
upscale version of the
proper.
Mirai.
It's a proper evolution of the Crown, like the Crown nameplate.
Yeah.
Because the Crown is more comparable to like the GS, right? Like that we
Mm.
had here. I don't even know if the GS exists anymore as well.
Oh, it still
But
does. Just no one buys them.
I I never understood that car either. It's another one of these cars that are really not on my radar. But the Crown is kind of that premium luxury executive type sedan, um, which the current one, it's an interesting interpretation. We talked about this when we're talking about the Corolla Cross, how this is gonna be the Corolla going forward. Like
Right.
now it's the Corolla Cross, but probably in 10 years there will be no traditional four-door sedan Corolla because like we talked about, the Corolla evolved from like a two-door hatchback to a front-wheel drive notchback to a little, really little four-door sedan, and then now it's an SUV. And so it's a dynamic thing that I guess this is the direction Toyota wants to bring the Crown namesake.
Mhm.
And it's we'll see.
We'll see how
I'll,
successful it is with the one
I'm
version
really
that we're getting.
curious. Yeah, because for me, I don't want such a big car that's not an SUV.
Yeah, you don't really get the practicality side of it.
Yeah,
The
it looks like a huge vehicle that takes up a lot of parking space, but you're not getting. I
the
can't move a fridge in it or an aircon. Like,
the only real advantage here is you're getting the traditional shape, but you're
mhm,
sitting higher up.
yeah, and it's
That's
like
really it.
optics, I guess. Like people don't want to be, like I was talking about with the Raptor. You don't want to be seen in a big hunkin' 35-inch tire truck with fender flares. Like you look like someone who hates the environment. When realistically, someone driving like a third gen Forerunner, making 1/3 of the power, gets worse fuel economy. And no one bats an eye. Oh, that guy's a tree lover. That guy loves the outdoors. But you look. It's maybe it's optics a little bit. People who really don't want to be seen in an SUV, they
Mhm.
would take something like this, which gives you some of the SUV flavor, but not the guilt, I guess, associated with it for some people. I don't know.
No, that totally makes sense. That totally makes sense. But you have no guilt if you take a look at our next vehicle that we got here. this is the new Blazer. We finally got more information about it. It is fully released. There's a bunch of models. What's really, really weird is it's available as front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, and all wheel drive.
Hmm.
I think this is the first, okay, maybe not the first vehicle ever, but first vehicle, like a vehicle in a long while that offers all three types of
Yeah,
powertrain. It kind of reminds me like when you're playing Forza, you can like switch your
convert
differential.
anything.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can have whatever you want. The Blazer comes standard on front wheel drive, but you can have rear wheel drive or all wheel drive, depending on the
Why would
model.
anyone want rear wheel drive?
Well, so they have different trims, obviously. They have the 1LT, 2LT, RS, as well as the SS. So the 1LT, that's like your base trim. That comes with front wheel drive. If you get the RS, you can get it with rear wheel drive or optional all wheel drive. So I think it's kind of like RS is like sportier, right? Rally sport. So they want to give you a little bit more of that sporty flavor with all like rear wheel drive, and then you can get a little bit more with
Without the cost of all-wheel drive.
yeah. And
Yeah,
of course the extended range as well, because it's less motors, same size battery, you're gonna get more range.
yeah. That is
Um,
kind of the beauty of electric platforms, and I think this is kind of GM flexing a little bit. Like, hey, we can build one platform, and let's say we have a front-wheel drive family sedan in it, or a rear-wheel drive sports car, and they will be built on the same skateboard basically,
mhm.
and we're just stretching and whatever it might be, but we'll have this is kind of like them having a bit of fun, I would say, to make a choice like this. I don't really get it from a marketing or sales perspective. Like, I don't know why we need a rear wheel drive only model. I think front wheel drive gets the job done, and then if you want fast, just get the dual motor or whatever they call it.
Yeah, it's definitely weird because RS standard front wheel drive, standard rear wheel drive, all wheel drive optional,
Only on that RS trim, because the
only on the
SS,
RS.
which is the hottest trim,
Yeah.
only comes all wheel drive, like all of the electric, sporty cars
Mhm.
out there.
So the
Uh,
SS is actually pretty interesting. 557 horsepower, 684 pound-feet of torque.
hmm,
That's decent numbers.
wonder if that's going for the Mach-E territory.
Well,
This is a lot bigger.
it, this looks up. It looks bigger, but
The
is it
trunk
bigger?
looks a lot bigger.
Yeah. Well, the Mach-E has 480 horsepower and 634 pound-feet of torque. So
Yeah,
this is definitely going to be more powerful than that.
yeah. The Mach-E's got actually good space inside. Like, it's visually it looks smaller, but it's kind of deceptive how big it is.
It's
Uh,
not bad, but this being like not the turtle shape that
yeah, the
most EVs
traditional.
are.
It's so dynamic, the look of it.
Yeah.
The Blazer EV, it's pretty sexy. Like, it's
The,
what we've been waiting for from Chevy for a while, I
the
think.
wheels are pushed all the way to the
It's
edges though.
so Hot Wheels. Like,
Yeah.
those Hot Wheels that, from 10 years ago, that you're like, what the heck is that supposed to be? The proportions are so weird and impractical. And it's kind of interesting that they went for a very traditional, sporty architecture and like proportions, because there's no need to with electric motors. You don't need, a big L-shaped right angle front fascia like that. That's very aggressive, but not great for aerodynamics.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the aerodynamics are they figured that out, how to have minimal trade off. But it's just like, this thing is, it makes so much sense because people who are used to traditional vehicles, gas powered vehicles, that is, are gonna see this and be like, hey, that is everything I like about my gas guzzling
Well,
crossover.
the thing is, like, looking at the pictures of even this base model doesn't look too bad. I mean, the front plaque bumper grill thing is kind of meh. But if you
Yeah,
step into the RS, it's very acceptable.
it's
This is
pretty hot.
it's not bad. Like it's definitely not as aggressive as the SS,
Yeah,
but
the SS is nuts.
yeah, but I don't think, you really need that. The
There's
RS
no
is
there's no bad trims in there,
no,
I think.
and it's like reasonable. Like it starts at 52,000 Canadian up to 81,000 for
Really.
the SS.
That's
That's
very
before
fair.
options. So you're gonna probably stack on a little bit more on top of that.
Hmm.
But 52 for base, it's not horrible with the range of about 400 kilometers or so.
Hmm.
Not bad. Definitely not bad. The brakes look tiny behind 22-inch wheels though.
Yeah, they look like legitimate like Brembos, but the wheels are so big that
Yeah, it's
nothing will
just
fill in that gap.
it's
The charging flap is huge.
it
It's a
is.
whole fender.
It has that. Was it Taycan that has a similar thing, or the Audis where
The
the whole
Taycan
flap comes
slides
down?
backwards,
Mm,
I think. This is kind of odd because going downwards, that flap. So how it is for those of you just listening, the flap, it's about 1 foot by one, like a whole 1.5 square feet, and it flips downwards, which doesn't really make sense from a charging perspective because your cable always droops downwards. I think so. It kind of feels counterintuitive. Like moving it to the side or upwards to block the rain kind of makes more sense to me. But okay. How do you think about the interior?
So I'm just comparing the few interiors that they have here. So this looks like the base model because the seats look a little bit more
Yeah,
clothy.
fairly traditional,
Not
but
bad.
stylish.
It reminds me of the NX, and that's
Yeah,
totally fine. And the GM infotainment always works well. It has some
yeah.
dedicated knobs on here. Like I don't see any problems with it. You step up
Yeah,
with the leather here,
little
that
bit of
looks,
gloss black, like probably scratchy plastics from here and there, but
yeah.
like
I don't think
uh
it's that bad because like even the upper panels, that's
they
all
look
stitched
really good.
leather.
Yeah,
Yeah. And if you step in the SS, you're gonna get, oh no, this is
red
SS or RS? This is RS.
RS with a
Even
two-tone.
RS has two-tone. You get the leather already.
Yeah,
SS steps it up some more with more bucketed seats, it looks like. Yeah.
yeah.
Not I don't think there's any problems with this interior.
I like this interior. It's very traditional. Like if you're
Yeah.
the thing is if you're used to current GM products or even anything from the last say 4 or 5 years, this is not going to be a huge departure for you.
Mhm.
Whereas like if you're used to Ford products, the Mach E is quite a departure. Nothing wrong, against the Mach E, but this is kind of what you need to take away from those traditional buyers and move them into EVs. I think, and I really, oh, I just remember the paddles because I remember driving
Mm.
the both the Bolt and the Volt, and I love those paddles. It's so intuitive to use as far as like regenerative braking, to gain you some range and just use your fingers to slow down the car. Basically,
Yeah.
it's really nice. I really like that feature, and I would use it every day.
I quite like this. And of course you get
Yeah.
Super Cruise as an option. Like
For 60 to 70 for an average model, I think this would be really compelling.
yeah.
Uh, you know, the stuff that's out there right now. So we got, the VW IDs, ID whatevers. Those are too small, I think, in my opinion. I like them, but they're a little bit too small. The Ionic and the Kia EV6, those are those are a little bit bigger, but they don't kind of stir the soul, and I don't think they I don't know. What's your take on those compared to something like this? I think this just gets you that
This for some
prime.
reason, like this just gives me a little bit more flair. Kind of
Yeah.
like okay, so like I drove recently the Mach E GT and the Kia EV6 as well as the Ionic. The
Mhm.
Ionic, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but like you said, it doesn't excite you. It's not like something that's like, wow, I want to
Yeah,
drive this every day. The
honestly, it drives
EV6
pretty
was a
bad.
little bit better, but not by much. The Mach E, that was actually fun. That was engaging. Like I took that around a corner and I accelerated with traction control on and everything. Back end slipped out a little bit. It felt like a sports car.
Hmm. I hope this feels similar to that. I hope
If
they benchmark that,
yeah,
and
if they are able to
because
do that, it would definitely make
yeah,
the
neither the
Blazer quite
Ionic or
good.
the EV6 really inspire me, and I feel like they're very much cars that you end up explaining yourself to people. I think they're very much that type of vehicle that you
It's
just have to tell people, hey, this is why I bought it. This is the value you're getting with this car.
it
Whereas you see something like this SS and you're like, yeah, that's I want that.
I think
And
the Hyundai it's Hyundai, it's 100% exactly what you expect from that brand, right?
yes, it's very
Like
practical.
it's
It's
your typical Hyundai brand.
it's very much an appliance, the Ionic,
Yeah.
I think is how I would put it. It's
Nothing wrong with an appliance. An appliance is great, but there's just nothing more that doesn't give
yeah,
you.
you because you need to get people excited. I think that's the beauty of Tesla is that so many people were infatuated with the idea of owning a Tesla. I don't think people are infatuated with an Ionic, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It's a lot less douchebaggery associated with owning an Ionic. Your whole life does not revolve around you owning an Ionic, but I don't think it does with the Blazer either. Like
No.
the Blazer is low key enough that it you're not that special. Like you don't think, but the car is kind of nice. Like
Yeah.
yeah, I
I'm
can't
I'm
wait to
ex
see this.
I'm excited for this. I really am.
Yeah,
But
especially the SS. I think for 80, that is kind of the right price point nowadays for this type of vehicle.
yeah, definitely. Let's move on from that to the topic that we should talk
The
about the
one that
most here.
everyone's the most excited about.
Ah, the FL5, the 2023 Honda Civic Type R. So, okay, there's no specs for this vehicle. Let me just say that first. They have said that it's going to be the most powerful Civic Type R ever. So it's going to have more than 302 horsepower, whatever it was.
Mhm.
Um, it's based on the 11th generation Civic, so it's a lot more subdued than the old one. But let's dive into it. Let's go over like looks first. Here's my take on it. If you say that this is like, if you bring this up to someone that doesn't know cars, would they feel like this is anything special? I don't think so, but that's good. It kind of resonates back to how like the
Integra
eighth,
or the EK Type R,
yeah, the eighth, even the eighth gen Civic
FD2s.
FD2, like it's yes, it's special, but to a regular person, it doesn't look all that special. It doesn't have like big vents on the front to tell you that
Yeah.
it's a racing car.
And that's the thing. Type R never really stood for like you look at NSXR, that is the most R of all the R's, and that R is not that insane. Like I think one of them had that whale snorkel on the roof.
Yep, yep, that
But
intake.
but overall, you look at a normal NSXR, and it's just got a black roof, black mirrors, black spoiler, you know, it's nothing that crazy.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
And
You forgot. It has a mesh gear shift boot to save weight. Do you remember that? You remember that?
uh,
The type the Type R NSX shift boot was made from this mesh so that it would save more weight comparing to the regular shift boot.
oh, like the fabric.
Yeah. But yeah, it's
So Civic Type R, The new one, styling wise, it is more subtle than the old one. I really like it from the front. That's why it's my picture this week, because I think they really nailed it with the wide body. I think the bumper accent that's kind of like at a right angle at the corners really stretches out how and really exaggerates how wide this front fender treatment is over the regular Civic. I think they nailed it with the front bumper. I think the normal Civic it just looks drowsy a little bit. The hood scoop is not much of a scoop at all. It's just a hood slit.
Well, it's
Um,
a extraction port this time rather than an intake.
hmm And I noticed where they put it relative to the engine is right above the turbo where it gets the hottest,
Yeah.
right above the exhaust manifold, if you can call it that. But downpipe, turbo, that's right where it is. Makes a lot of sense. And it's subtle. Uh, no kind of dip into the hood or anything. It's kind of conservative. Black mirrors, uh, much wider rear as well, but they've actually changed the doors, which is I think that is a huge investment that is going to pay off because that's one of the ugliest things about the FK8, the 10th gen Civic, the outgoing Civic Type R, is that they cheaped out on the door. So they gave it a wide body. They cut out the fenders a little bit bigger and they slapped on plastic fender flares. And because they just didn't feel like it, the door is like a regular door and
Has
it
this
doesn't
hard edge.
yeah, there's a line that just is very visually unappealing with the front edge of the fender flare and the door. It just very sudden and just looks cheap. It's not graceful at all, and people have grown to accept it. Some people have gone and quote unquote fixed it by adding a piece of trim to finish that line.
Yeah, it's a
But
super common piece.
yeah, but the FL5 has fixed that by putting investing in a proper wide body where you have wider sheet metal over the wheel arches, and you have a wider door curve so that the door actually flares out to meet with the fender arch in a smooth, you know, elegant and sexy way. I would say it's not as dramatic. Like it's to the untrained eye, they might not even notice this is a wide body car. Um,
And
really nice side skirt and fender. I guess another extraction vent on the front. Uh, Carry over from the FK8 in a sense, with the side skirt. Um, the wing, though. Let's talk about the wing because I think the rest of it is predictable. The rest of it is cohesive. To me, the wing is not cohesive, but I've heard different takes on it. I've watched a lot of reviews on this car.
yeah, well, the aluminum stands, it, it it makes it stand out quite a bit more than your traditional Type R wings. Most Type R wings on like the Civics and the Integras, they've always been just kind of body mounted rather than all these aluminum stands. So very similar to the FK8 one.
Hmm.
I don't mind the look of it. I would have liked something that's more FK8 style, but
Mhm.
I also don't mind this because in my eyes, the best looking FK8 was the LE, which had no wing. So like if it was up to me, what I would do is I would take that trunk lid off and put a regular Civic hatch trunk lid on it anyways. Like that's the style I would like personally
Mhm.
because I like the standard trunk lid more. But even the standard like Civic hatch, you can get a wing for that. And it's very similar in its placement. So I don't know if it's like the same holes.
Yeah. So my gripe with this wing, I think it looks okay. My favorite wing is the Voltex wing on the FK8s. I like the kind of all-out look that it gives, but from a factory wing perspective,
Mm.
I wanted to see something because I don't like how the normal Civic hatchback looks anymore. I think it looks kind of like it's wearing a backpack, like it looks hunched over a little bit.
Mm.
And a body colored wing molded to kind of draw away from those lines, I think would have been perfect. And I feel like we will see this from the aftermarket.
Oh, aftermarket world for sure.
Yeah, they're gonna give it like different style of wings that is gonna just visually lift the rear a little bit, I think. And I think that's what this car needed. And the GT wing, sort of GT wing that they've put on it, just doesn't visually uh, alter the shape whatsoever.
Mhm.
It looks like a tacked on wing, which it is.
Yeah.
And it's done in gloss black, so it's kind of boring as well. But very similar wing. I mean, a lot of manufacturers are going for this kind of metal stand wing nowadays. It seems all the sports trims, but yeah, to me, I would rather see more integrated, cohesive styled wing to go with the new looks. This wing just looks, overall the car looks more mature, and then you get to this wing, and arguably the old wing was bigger, but I think the old wing fit in with the styling a lot better than this one.
Yeah.
That's my biggest gripe with it is the wing. The exhaust is now in a small, big, small, triple exhaust configuration. I think the
Rather
old
than
one was big,
small and the one in the
small,
middle. Yeah.
big, small, big. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
It
so
this
that
looks visually better to me.
yes, because it kind of tapers out rather
Yeah,
than
it's like that oval shape.
yeah, it's not gonna sound good. Just knowing
Well, there's that sound clip that someone posted. It's on YouTube. If you search 2023 Civic Type R exhaust, you'll find it. It doesn't sound horrible, but that was in a studio environment with no load.
mm,
It's just, sitting there revving a little bit.
yeah, no load, it revs quickly. When that was the thing with the FK8 that I could never get over, and frankly, it's keep that car is the sound because I've heard so many different exhausts, downpipe, front pipes, catbacks, whatever you want to call it, and none of them really does it for me. The car
Mhm.
is always drony and when you're driving it on track, it just it's just not a pleasant sound. Uh, I know four cylinders don't typically sound that great, but we've talked about in the past there are good sounding, at least better sounding four cylinders. And while this is one of the fastest out there, especially in a front wheel drive configuration, it definitely does not sound even remotely decent.
Yeah.
And you can listen to all of the exhaust videos. There's quieter ones, there's louder ones, but they all kind of achieve the same drony lawnmower effect.
Mhm.
And I don't think this car will be that different, but I'd be happy to be proved wrong, especially with the aftermarket to see that hey, there is one exhaust that just changes the character of this car. Uh, and I would love to see that, but I haven't seen it yet in the FKA chassis. I think all of the exhausts sound terrible. The stock one is terrible as well. You don't actually hear any exhaust from inside the car. It's just engine buzz.
Mhm.
Uh, the interior, I think, is the right amount of special for me. I think the seats, they are what we expected, but they're the best seats on the market.
Seats are
Any
nice.
price.
Not heated seats. Not electrically powered, but they are red and they are very, very nice.
Mhm.
What's new for this year is the carpet is also red. Not just the carpet that goes on top, but the entire carpet
Carpet
is also
underneath
red.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very different. I don't know how I feel about that because like I think I'm just gonna get that real dirty. I'm gonna get really upset about that.
Mhm.
Um, but You got the teardrop shifter, you got the red emblem, you got red stitching within the steering wheel. It looks like it's a thicker steering wheel as well. The Type R badge on the inside, the one to show you what number car you have, it's right in front of the passenger on that
Vent
kind of
strip,
grill. It's
honeycomb vent
it,
strip.
it's a good place for it. They updated the infotainment as well as the cluster. The cluster has a special R mode that shows you like your all your temps, and it moves the tack in a more
Track
diagonal.
oriented way. So the tack in the sports mode, we saw this with the GR86, which basically 0 to 3000 RPM is squished all into the left
Yeah.
because you're not going to be in that range on track.
Mhm.
You're mainly looking at 4 to 7000. Lots of temperatures. I don't even know what all of them are. I know there's water temperature, and one looks like air intake temperature, uh, boost pressure, oil temp. I don't know what the top right one is. Maybe ambient temp. That could be ambient, like air temp.
Maybe.
In which case, that air intake temp is double what the ambient temp is, which is kind
That
of scary.
makes
Uh,
sense.
it yeah. So that you're getting temp gauges on the in the middle
Uh,
and in the LogR app, which is now part of the infotainment system. It seems
mhm.
the 2021 that I have is has the LogR app. You plug in your phone, and on track you can actually do lap timing, and you can see temps that you normally can't see on the speedometer cluster thing. Uh, so LogR is now built in to the infotainment instead, which is pretty cool. You don't need to plug in a phone to get all those lap timing and the cool gauges, uh, the 6 temperature gauges. I didn't even know there's so many different temperatures to measure, but
what what I
so
also saw in the cluster is very similar to the Civic Si that we get here in Canada. So we get shift lights.
yes, they're very wide. They're all the way across. The old one had shift lights as well, but it like just kind of flashes it. You kind of see it in your peripheral. This one is more of a traditional shift light. I think it how do you say it? Like stretches
Sequential.
sequential. Yeah. Looking at other details, the wheels. The wheels are huge for me because they
Hmm.
went back down to a 19-inch wheel, which is a better size. Everyone within the aftermarket tends to go to 18 on the FK8. I think we'll see more people stay with a 19. Although looking at the brakes, there should be no reason that you can't go down to 18 because
Yeah.
the 19s are give you a little bit more tire. It's still a 30 series profile tire, but it's a 30 series on a 265 width. The old one was a 245 30/20.
Mhm.
So that's a really wide tire, like widest they've ever fit to a Type R from the factory.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty big jump from going from
And
245 to 265.
not a lot of, correct me if I'm wrong, not a lot of FKA guys run 265. I know a lot of them run generally 255s.
No, a lot run 265 35
Oh,
18, which
265.
is the equivalent of this 265 30 19.
Hmm.
But 265 30 19 is not available in a lot of tires. I
Hmm.
can tell you that. 275 30 19 is going to be available. I wonder how wide this wheel is, though, because to properly support a 265 tire, it
Yeah.
probably needs to be at least a 9.5 inch wheel, which is pretty cool because the old one was a terrible offset. I think it was an 8.5 and like almost a 60 offset. I think it is a 60 offset, 8.5, 60 offset. So the old car had room to run a tire and wheel combination like this, but they didn't. This one looks like there's still room to go wider though.
Hmm.
It looks like a 285 square would be very possible on this kind of setup or with the room that the fenders have allowed. So that's kind of exciting is,
Well, I
you
mean,
know,
the tire that it comes with, they're Pilot Sport 4Ss now.
mhm.
So that's going to be a lot more grip for you as well. And
Well, the old one actually came with Sport Contact 6s, which are actually decent tires, but everyone rags on them for some reason
hmm,
because they test really well.
hmm,
PS4S are newer tire. But PS4S don't actually test better than the Sport Contact 7s,
Oh,
which are
okay.
actually a more aggressive tire. So PS4S is, I think, a 320 tread wear, and the Sport Contact 7s are under 300. They start with a
This,
2.
the PS4S was on the special edition, the yellow ones.
No, those are Cup 2s.
Oh, they put Cup 2s on those. Oh, I
Cup
thought they
2s,
put
which
only
are
4Ss.
horrendous in the rain, as we learned this weekend. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But Cup 2s are some of the worst rain tires you can get. I don't even like them in the dry, frankly. But the PS4S is a kind of a more mixed use summer tire
Yeah.
that makes sense on a car like this with power like this. We don't know the
Oh,
exact power, but Euro and Japanese FK8's got like 320 horse, and this should be more than that. So we can expect like what, 330, 340 horse.
325.
Yeah, but one major thing which I'm really curious about is cooling, because I took the FK8 to mission and I maxed out that temp gauge real quick. Like driving on street tires, stock tune, and I maxed out the temp gauge. So that to me was also a red flag on why this car maybe is not what it's hyped up to be. The Type R, the racing model, I guess what the R stands for, just you can't race anyone for very long because it's good for maybe 3 laps before your temps start creeping up, and that's a problem. The Logar app showed it. You're exceeding 120 Celsius after 3 to 4 laps at Mission, at Vancouver Island, at Area 27. On a hot summer track day, it will not stand up. Now, I'm really curious if they fix that with this new one, because giving it more power is great and all for selling cars and testing well, giving you 0 to 60 numbers, quarter mile times. But in the real world, if I want to enjoy this car, I need to know that it's not going to blow up on me. I don't want to see 140 degrees. I have seen 140 degrees on my Type R on track, and that's terrifying. Like 110 for reference, 110, 115 is kind of when STIs start to warp. Like the Type R can take a surprising amount of abuse, but you don't want to stay up there for very long. Your oil cannot stay up there for very long. So that is one of my biggest concerns with this upcoming model is, have they addressed the cooling issues, which you don't have on the street, but it's one of my big concerns being kind of a former Type R owner. I'm really curious if the new generation is resolved. Now, under the hood, that's kind of the only difference I see is this extra little carbon
Black.
fiber box. It's a very thin kind of metal carbon fiber box that's bolted together with 6 bolts for some reason. So it's really heavy duty because uh, but it's a mystery as to what it is. It
Yeah.
sits right on top of the turbo, right on top of the intake. We don't really know what it does. Maybe it's for sound. Uh, yeah, if it helps the car sound better, all the power to them. Uh, we'll find out more when Honda releases more
Yeah.
official information on it. But yeah, those are my red flags, and I don't know. The brakes look revised, but not really. It's a different caliper. It looks like they look to be about the same size though. But the old car had no problem with brakes. That is one of the things that Honda can, pat themselves on the back. They put a proper master cylinder and caliper and rotor on these that
Other
they
than the
actually hold
first,
up.
other than the first gen ones, right?
The
The
first gen
initial,
ones, so they still had good brake feel. They just go through rotors like crazy.
yeah.
Um, I don't know what the rear brakes are gonna be like, but the I know the fronts, they do destroy rotors, but that was improved with the later ones when they went to this
That two
two-piece
piece.
setup, which is a little bit lighter but a lot more expensive. Um, what else did I say about the Type R? Uh, yeah, I'm excited to see what this thing, because it looks like you could probably fit a 285, maybe even a 305 tire on there, and that would be nuts because that would make it so fast. Not
I'm,
fun though.
I'm just
And
thinking like on the street how much tram lining you'll
a
get.
305 square setup on the torque steer would be insane too, because like you would feel it a lot more when one 305 tire gets way more traction and it just sends you the other way. Uh, Well, the old Type R had no issues with torque steer, in my opinion. I experienced that for the first time in your brother-in-law's car this weekend. I was just violent torque steer in his Mazda CX-3, but the Type R, happy to report no issues with torque steer. And okay, here's my take from having a Type R and tracking a Type R and streeting a Type R. The Type R is is a perfect car. As far as cars go, it's one of these perfect cars. It just gets everything right. Brake feel, steering feel, shifter feel. It's got good power, very good handling, very good manners on track and on the street. But my gripe with the Type R, I don't have any fun in it. Like it's not entertaining to drive. It drives itself. And that's one of the things like so one of our former employees is taking over the lease of that gray Type R and we took it to Oregon Raceway and he's like, it's fast. It runs a respectable time, but you don't feel like you're having any fun because the car drives itself. The car drives great, but it drives itself. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the same with this generation Type R because they're chasing numbers, they're chasing lap times. They're talking about, hey, we broke the lap record at Suzuka. We're going for lap record at Nürburgring. And the car is going to be amazing lap time wise, but how engaging and how exciting it is to drive, that is my bigger concern. Is it actually going to be any better in the old one? Because in the press release, nothing hints that that's what Honda was going for. It doesn't mention anything about being more fun. It talks about being faster. It talks about being more powerful, but fun. That's something that's kind of left the Honda philosophy with the FKA generation. Arguably, even the old ones drove more. You felt like you were more involved.
Mhm.
The FKA takes you along for the ride, and it's a great ride. It's like riding on a roller coaster. You feel like you're going fast, and you feel like you're doing something. You're taking like a 100-foot drop in a matter of seconds, but at the end of the day, you're strapped into a roller coaster. You feel safe, and that is one of the things that just made me not want to keep this car. Is that it just feels too safe.
You want a car that every time you drive it just wants to kill you a little bit.
Yeah. And it's not that it wants to kill you. It wants to kill you if you drive over the limit. And the Type R, I've rarely see one on track spin out, run off track. Maybe if they didn't break enough, but you just don't see those kind of issues that throw off a novice driver. It's a very novice friendly car, but are you actually building any skill with a car like this? Because it's the car taking you for a ride, not the
Mhm.
other way around. That is what I need to kind of review with a new car. You need to drive it on track. You need to see what it's like at the limit, and with the wider tires, I think it might actually help. Uh, as far as like being a little bit more snappy
Mhm.
because you have more front grip, and that's the thing with the old EKs, EGs, DC2s. Those cars would bite you if like they handle well, but if you trail brake a little bit too aggressively, that back end is getting light. That is not a thing with the FK8. The back end stays so planted. You could Scandinavian flick it and you can't get the back to come around with. And that's the thing is you're not getting to drive it. It drives more like an all-wheel drive car in that sense, but it's just I want to see fun. I want Type R to stand for fun, and I'm not sure I'm gonna get it from this car.
You want a
That
Type F.
Yeah, but none of that matters because everyone is going to buy these and be, oh, they're not going to depreciate. It's a great investment, but I'm not about that life. Cars are meant to be driven. Cars are meant to be enjoyed, have fun in. You don't treat it like an investment. There's better investments out there, as we always say on this show.
Oh,
Yeah.
something that I did see. I was checking out Instagram and whatnot. The press cars that was launched in California, all Japan built. They looked at the VIN. I don't know if you
Yes, they
saw that.
killed off the UK factory, I believe. So yeah, Japanese built. UK, honestly, UK Type R is awful. The FK8s, reliability wise, build quality wise, one of the worst cars on the market. I would
It's
say.
just, it's the Land Rover employees were moving over.
The crazy thing is, I think what the Canadian sedans were built here, and then the hatchbacks and the Type Rs are all built in the UK. And when you take off a door, you can tell like this is a UK built car, this is a Canadian built
Hmm,
car.
interesting.
Uh, yeah,
I think that's really it. You want to talk about your track experience?
yeah. I mean, Jimmy and I were out at the track this Sunday,
I
July
was
17th,
I was in the rain.
standing out. He was standing out in the rain taking pictures. Forgot to bring his helmet. I don't know why.
I didn't.
Was
I
happy to take you
chose.
out for a ride.
I chose not to bring it because I was like,
Like, well, what were
yeah.
you gonna do for the second half of the day? But
Well,
it was a super wet track day.
yeah.
Uh, good wet track day is a good learning experience because it does punish a lot of bad drivers. I saw people ending up in the grass. I saw people no major incidents, but I saw a lot of people spinning out, getting black flag for drifting and stuff like that. I took it really easy. I took the GT4 out on the Cup 2s, completely useless. No fun at all because not you turn, nothing happens, you brake, nothing happens. You can't even accelerate in a straight line, it's just skipping everywhere. So not that great in the GT4. I just mainly went there, instructed, took some students around, probably took 4 or 5 students out. Um, just talked to them basically out on track. And yeah, that's kind of the whole idea. I don't really You're not gonna set a lap time. I don't even want to try to set a lap time in the rain. But yeah, the Cup twos really disappointing. I drove your brother-in-law's Mazda Speed on Yokohama Flavas V701s. I love those. Like they're so stable. That car was so controllable. Uh, really awesome tire. Like it was an awesome day if you had a 300 tread wear or above tire, and I did not. Um, so yeah, it's good
Should
first time out for him. For sure.
should have switched to intermediates or wets.
Yeah, like it's a F1 race.
Yeah.
I can't afford a second set of tires right now. You know what I should have done? I should have brought my winters.
Oh, that
I
would have
got
been
I got Michelin PA5s, which are like a sporty winter tire. They
that would
came
have
with
been
the
fun.
Advan wheels, so if I put my stock wheels on with the winters, they would have done better because those are actually really good, like high performance winters that handle good and actually evacuate water. Because
Yeah.
there were times when I was just staring at a wall, ABS going off. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it through this, and it's just terrible. I got passed by everyone,
I
and bad times.
watching it trackside, I mean, there was a lot of cars going at it. There's a couple of Supras that was just ridiculously fast. That 992
GT3,
GT3,
yeah.
that guy was quick. Like
Mhm.
how he was going through some of those corners, I was like, well, he's a lot faster than I thought. But the star of that day, I think you know him, is the MX5 RF.
Oh,
He has an
uh,
overdrive license plate frame,
Jeff, yeah,
so I'm sure
he's
you know
super
him.
fast in the rain.
Ridiculous. Like he was in the first two sessions, he was in Group A. He was right behind a Porsche GT3 on the street. The GT3 would leave him for dead. He was nowhere. But I sat at turn 14, so almost nearing the end of the track. At the beginning of the track, that's where the longest straight is. He'll just be gone because little MX5 can't keep up with the GT3. But where I was, he was always right next to him, and he got blue, and the GT3 got blue flagged to let the little MX5 go.
Hmm.
How upset of your ego, like you have a GT3, you bring it on track, you think you're the boss, and then
That's the thing I don't understand is because I'm here in the GT4 and I'm like, I have nothing to prove. I just want to make it home in one piece because I don't feel like I am. Like if I see someone in my rear view, I'm like braking and pulling over to let them by. I really wanted to take the ND out, but just before the track day, I got it aligned and I noticed the engine mount. One of the engine mounts has a crack in it
Mhm.
because occasionally I would feel the transmission vibrate a lot.
Mm,
And I was like, what is causing this? And then I noticed I have one little bracket that is supposed to come in tomorrow. So I'm going to mission on Monday. Today is Thursday, Friday. So Monday is going to be our track day overdrive mission event. Hopefully I can bring the Miata out because the Miata's got like decent fresh rubber that has actual tread. It's usable in the rain. Uh,
well, it's gonna be a nice day on
it's gonna be a
Monday.
really hot day, but
Yeah.
I want to drive that car there, and I
Well,
I chose not to at at VIMC last weekend, and I think that was a mistake because I would have definitely enjoyed myself more in
um,
the matter.
my brother-in-law actually really wanted to go for Monday,
But
but
then
then he was like,
it's sold out.
no, he wasn't the sold out part because he was like, I'm sure I can bug Justin and somehow make it on. I was
Mm.
like, how about this? He just announced that he was gonna like they were gonna do October 2nd at the Ridge, which is a big boy track. Why don't you do that instead?
Ooh,
And he was like, oh, okay.
he's gonna
He
budget for that.
he literally signed up for in like minutes.
It was so cheap. So we're
Oh,
sponsoring. I guess we should mention that here too. Is we're sponsoring the October 2nd Ridge Day. That's about as late in the season as you want to go. Uh, it's a hit or miss, honestly. Like some people get their fastest times in the September October track days because air
it's
is
cooler.
cold, the turbo cars are happy,
Yeah.
tires are happy, they're not getting greasy. If it's dry, you're gonna set a really good time. If it rains, then you're gonna learn the track.
Yeah.
You're gonna learn how your car drives in the rain. Just bring appropriate tires
Yeah. Not cup twos.
and not cup twos. It's just not fun. It's miserable.
Well,
I didn't
I'm
even try to turn off the traction control because I'm like, it like the car could put power down. I wasn't actually even worried about that. I think the mid-engine layout is good for putting power down in the wet.
it,
The problem is you couldn't stop. And that's where I don't want to follow anyone too closely. I don't want anyone following me too closely because I can't
these
stop.
yeah. Well, the official told the Supra guy uh to not turn his traction control off.
Oh, the white Supra,
No, not that one. The one
the
that spun out.
gray one that
We won't be too specific on which one it was, but it was the one that spun out, and then he spun
uh,
out again. Um,
yeah. Well,
hearing the officials on radio was actually my comedy for the day. That was really good. I enjoyed that quite a bit.
yeah.
Um,
But yeah, be sure to come out to
yeah, if you guys want
track
to come out
days.
to October 2nd track day, let us know. I'll be going in something that's going to be amazing. It has a V6. It
Ooh.
has a 6-speed manual, and it's running KO2s.
Oh,
It was like,
Bronco.
oh, oh. It's a Tacoma TRD
Oh,
Pro.
oh, oh. They switched to KO2s now.
I'm just guessing it's KO2s.
Oh.
I don't know. It's probably some sort of mud tire that
I
yeah,
know they were using Wrangler Duratrax before,
yeah, it's
but
probably that, if
and
anything.
then some the foreigners use Nittos, but yeah. There's an
Yeah.
off-road park there. I don't know if they let you drive in there.
No, I don't. Actually, that might not be bad.
Yeah, you can.
I
A lot of press reviews are done at Ridge
Oh yeah,
for
that I know.
off-road. Yeah.
I'm I'm I was gonna just sit in with my brother-in-law with his in his Mazda Speed 3, but I think I decided to drive as well, just in case if something does go wrong.
Are we gonna do a? Or we have 3 months or 2.5 months to prep a kicking tires track build, a track beater build.
I'm gonna shut off this recording first, then we can talk about that because I don't want to talk about this on air.
It's
It's
top
been
secret,
it's
confidential.
it's been a struggle. It's not even that. It's just been a struggle.
Yeah. If you
But
guys have any ideas for cheap track builds, leave it in the comments
yeah,
or on our Instagrams.
we kicking tires is it's gonna be like an organization that owns too many cars very soon.
I am already that organization. I talked about my claim last week. I think my
Yes, you
truck
did.
getting hit. Yeah, I logged into ICBC to make that claim, and it's like you have 5 vehicles insured right now under your name. I'm like,
Whoops.
F. I'm like, that's where all my money's going.
ICBC
Yeah.
is taking it all.
Mhm.
Anyways, thank you so much for watching this podcast here for this week and this thing in. We'll see you next week with more automotive news. But do let us know if you have any other suggestions for a track day car, something that's cheap, something reasonable. We'll talk to you next week. Take care,
Yeah.
everyone.